ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿರುವ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ತಾಯ್ನುಡಿ ದಿನಾಚರಣೆಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆದರದ ಪ್ರೀತಿಪೂರ್ವಕ ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಮೊದಲನೆಯದಾಗಿ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಹರ್ಷದಾಯಕ ಮತ್ತು ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನದ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳನ್ನು ಕೋರ್ತೇನೆ. ಈ ದಿನದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ನೆನಪಿಸುವುದಲ್ಲದೆ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸುವತ್ತ ಮತ್ತು ಬೆಳೆಸುವತ್ತ ನಾವು ಕಂಕಣರ ಬದ್ಧರಾಗಬೇಕು ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ಮನವರಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡುತ್ತದೆ ಎಂದು ನಾನು ನಂಬುತ್ತೇನೆ.
Namaskara, namaste, and a very good morning to all of you, and a hearty welcome to Central Institute of Indian Languages for International Mother Language Day. First of all, I would like to wish all of you a very happy International Mother Language Day. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Ningsi Tomsong, and I'll be anchoring for today's program along with my friend Nanya Murthy, and he will be anchoring in Canada. I wish and hope that this program will be a very successful one, and at the same time, I hope that this program will remind us the importance of our mother language, at the same time to help us take a step further in initiating and aiming and preserving and promoting our mother languages. So before we proceed further, let us invoke God's presence into our midst. And for that, I request Chitan Baji to sing an invocation. And his song is a translation of John Henry's song, Lead Kindly Light, translated by B.M. Street. So I request Chitan Baji to kindly take his time.
Thank you, Nancy. ಕರುಣಾಳು ಬಾ ಬೆಳಕೆ ಮುಸುಕಿದಿ ಮಬ್ಬಿನಲಿ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಇರುಳು ಕತ್ತಲೆಯಾಗಲಿ ಮನೆ ದೂರ ಕನಿಕರಿಸಿ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಕರುಣಾಳು ಬಾ ಬೆಳಕೆ ಮುಸುಕಿದಿ ಮಬ್ಬಿನಲಿ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಹೇಳಿ ನನ್ನಡಿ ಹಿಡಿಸು ಬಲು ದೂರ ನೋಟವನು ಕೇಳ ನೋಡನೆಯೇ ಸಾಕು ನನಗೊಂದು ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಮುನ್ನ ಇಂತಿರದಾದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಬೇಡದೆ ಹೋದೆ ಮುನ್ನ ಇಂತಿರದಾದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಬೇಡದೆ ಹೋದೆ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಕರು ದಿನ ಸಲಹಿರುವೆ ಈ ಮೂರ್ಖನನು ನೀನು ಕೇಳ ನೋಡನೆಯೇ ಸಾಕು ನನಗೊಂದು ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಮುನ್ನ ಇಂತಿರದಾದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಬೇಡದೆ ಹೋದೆ ಮುನ್ನ ಇಂತಿರದಾದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಬೇಡದೆ ಹೋದೆ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಕರುಣಾಳು ಬಾ ಬೆಳಕೆ ಮುಸುಕಿದಿ ಮಬ್ಬಿನಲಿ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಡೆಸೆನ್ನನು. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.
ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸುಮಧುರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಚೇತನ್ ಬಾಜಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಈ ದಿನದ ಗೋಷ್ಠಿಗೆ ಆಹ್ವಾನಿಸಲಾಗಿರುವ ಗಣ್ಯರನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸಬೇಕೆಂದು ನಾನು ಶ್ರೀ ಸುಜಯ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ್, ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕರು ಮತ್ತು ಹಿರಿಯ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾಧಿಕಾರಿ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರಭಾರ ಪ್ರಾಂಶುಪಾಲರು, ಪೂರ್ವ ಪ್ರಾದೇಶಿಕ ಭಾಷಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಭುವನೇಶ್ವರ ಇವರನ್ನ ವಿನಂತಿಸುತ್ತೇವೆ.
Thank you, Chetan. Let us move on to the next program. To begin our session, I would like to request Mr. Sujoy Sarkar, lecturer and junior research officer of the Institute and principal in charge of Eastern Languages Language Center, Bhubaneswar, to give us the welcome address. Sir, you may kindly take the time.
Namaskar, Namaste, Namaskara, Johar. Good morning to all of you. সবাইকে আন্তর্জাতিক মাতৃভাষা দিবসের শুভেচ্ছা। In this occasion, I like to welcome our former director Padmashri D.P. Patnaik, former director Uday Narayan Singh, Shri T.S. Nagavarnaji, chairman Kannada Development Authority, Government of Karnataka, renowned linguist Professor D.N.S. Bhatt, our director Professor Shailendra Mohan, my colleague Deputy Secretary Umarani Papuswamy, Professor Fernandez, Professor Shivram Krishna, and our other colleagues in the institute and other regional language center who have joined with us. I also welcome all the students and scholars from different regional language centers of CIL and other scholars who took their time and joined with us for this program. Today we have three eminent speaker with us. I hope you are going to enjoy this session. Thank you. I welcome one and all. Thank you.
ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಆದರದಿಂದ ಗಣ್ಯರನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಸುಜಯ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಭಾರತೀಯ ಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿರುವ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನಾಚರಣೆಯ 3 ದಿನಗಳ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಕುರಿತು ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿಕೊಡಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಉಪನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರಾದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಉಮಾರಾಣಿ ಪಪ್ಪುಸ್ವಾಮಿ ರವರು. ಮೇಡಮ್, ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ ತೆರೆಗೆ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಬಯಸ್ತೇನೆ.
Thank you, Sujay sir. Coming up next is a brief about the International Mother Language Day celebration at CIIL. For this, I would like to request on screen our very own Professor Umarani Papuswamy, Professor Deputy Director, to kindly say give us a briefing about our celebration for today. Madam, kindly take it.
Thank you, Nyan. ಗೌರವಾನ್ವಿತ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅತಿಥಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಉದಯ ನಾರಾಯಣ ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅವರೇ, ಗೌರವ ಅತಿಥಿ ಕೆಡಿಎ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು ಶ್ರೀ ನಾಗಭರಣ ಅವರೇ, ಗೌರವ ಅತಿಥಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಡಿ.ಎನ್. ಶಂಕರ ಭಟ್ ಅವರೇ, ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು ಸಿಐಎಲ್ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶೈಲೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋಹನ್ ಅವರೇ, ಫೌಂಡರ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಿಯ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ದೇಬಿ ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ ಪಟ್ನಾಯಕ್ ಅವರೇ, former directors Professor Uday Narayan Singh, Professor Sachdeva, my dear colleagues, Professor Fernandez Avargal, Professor Shivarama Krishna Garu, Professor Sivarama Shetty Avare, Sri Sujay Sarkar, Sri Alindra Brahma, Dr. Tariq Khan, Dr. Narayan Chaudhary, Dr. Pankaj Divedi, Dr. Prem Kumar, Dr. Sanjay Kumar Bagh, and other colleagues from RLC. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Ladies and gentlemen, namaste from Mysuru. Indeed, both an honor and a privilege to be part of this event, even though it is in virtual mode. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you and talk to you on the International Mother Language Day. On behalf of the Central Institute of Indian Languages and its regional language center, and on my own personal behalf, I wish all of you a very happy Mother Language Day. On this important day, I would like to begin my speech by saying a few words about our institute. The CIL, set up in 1969, is one of the unique institutions of the world that functions through different language and linguistic schemes to identify the similarities among different Indian languages or mother tongues in terms of history, literature, linguistic structure, vocabulary, culture studies, etc., and contribute to the development of all Indian languages, big and small. During the last 50 plus years of its existence, It serves as a clearinghouse of information in all matters related to the development of Indian languages in our nation and also abroad. This year, 2022, CIL commemorates the International Mother Language Day by organizing a series of events for 3 days beginning today in a virtual mode. Here we are in the opening session with Professor Udayanaran Singh as the chief guest, Shri T.S. Nagabarna and Professor D.N.S. Bhatt as guests of honor. Like most of you, I'm also eagerly waiting to hear their speeches. The Institute will also organize an essay competition this afternoon beginning at 2 p.m. in mother tongues at the headquarters and its 7 regional language centers. Dr. Sanjay Kumar Bagh from ERLC will coordinate this with the help of Sri Sujay Sarkar and Sri Alindra Brahma. On day 2, that is tomorrow, we plan to launch 2 interesting events. The forenoon will host a special session on the ideas of eminent academicians and writers on mother tongue to be coordinated by Dr. Tariq Khan. Join us tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. sharply. He has lined up interesting personalities over there. IA, join us and enrich the event. Once a language is lost, humanity loses a part of our rich heritage. The indigenous and lesser known mother tongues of our motherland, India, must be preserved. If not, we will lose a significant part of the heritage of our country. Each of these languages or mother tongues can unlock local knowledge about medicinal practices, ecological wisdom, mythological histories, and many other invaluable knowledge. How to safeguard and promote lesser known mother tongues? What are the ideas of the community persons with regard to maintenance of their mother tongues? If you are interested to know the answers to the above questions, please join us tomorrow afternoon, that is February 22nd at 2:30 p.m. in a special session with community persons on the maintenance of mother tongues. This event will be coordinated by Sri Sujay Sarkar. Day 3, that is February 23, will begin with the launch of lecture series in mother tongues in the forenoon from 11:30 a.m. onwards. This is unique in nature because all the lectures will be only in mother tongues of India, both scheduled and non-scheduled. The inaugural lecture of this series will be delivered Professor Balwant Shantilal Jani, Chancellor Dr. Hari Singh Gaur University, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. He is going to speak in Gujarati. This event will be conducted for 2-3 months. The plan is to cover lectures from 6 geographical zones, each coordinated by different people. North Zone 1 by Dr. Tariq Khan, 2 by Dr. Jay Sarkar, East Zone by Dr. Sanjay Kumar Bagh, West by Ms. Sujata Bhujang, Northeast by Sri Alindra Brahma, South by myself. As you all know, India is the 4th most linguistically diverse nation with 453 living languages. There are 22 scheduled languages and 19 non-scheduled languages and thousands of mother tongues. All the coordinators of the lecture series are at their task, and soon the institute will host as many lectures as possible in different mother tongues of our country. Professor D.P. Patnaik has agreed to deliver a talk in Odia very soon. The idea is to promote all our mother tongues in the fields of linguistics, literature, folklore, and culture studies. These lectures will be recorded and also published by the institute for the benefit of a larger audience. During the afternoon of day 3, we also have planned some general speeches by eminent personalities and eminent writers to be coordinated by Ms. Sujata Bhujang, Dr. Sanjay Kumar Bagh, and myself. All these are great, but you might ask, why am I speaking mostly in English and not in any other language? யாரத்திர மாத்தாடுதோ ஏன் చెప్పాలి எப்படி சொல்றது இவிட பலரும் உண்டு इसलिए हम अंग्रेजी में बात किया हाँ जी I chose to do it in English for the benefit of a larger audience माफ कीजिए The UNESCO has declared 2022-32 as the decade of international languages. All of us have the responsibility of promoting and preserving not only of our own mother tongues but also the languages of India in particular and the world in general. It is important to digitally empower the lesser known mother tongues of the most disadvantaged societies by effectively using technology to make their mother tongues not only visible but also promoted across the globe. I once again wish you a very happy International Mother Language Day. இனிய உலக தாய்மொழி தின வாழ்த்துக்கள். தன்யவாத். ஜெய் ஹிந்த்.
Thank you, Madam, for the lovely and brief remarks about the 3-day program. And let us all remember the interesting events that is ahead of us for the coming up coming 3 days. So let us all keep in mind and then participate in the events. Samiran Day has said that mother tongue is a link with mother, a link with homeland, a link to stay connected with the roots. So we really hope that this program, the coming up program, will really help us to take more care and preserve our mother languages. And ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy and honored and privileged to have with us a multi-talented Indian film director, actor, writer, and a pioneer in Kannada film industry. He is none other than Talakadu Srinivasa Nagabarana. Currently, he is the chairman of Kannada Development Authority, Government of Karnataka. He is one of the few film directors to have straddled the mainstream and parallel cinema worlds. He has been the recipient of international, national, state, and many other rewards. His films have entered as an Indian panorama into the international film festivals. We are grateful to you, sir, for being with us today. And I also would like to take this opportunity to request Sri T.S. Nagabarana to share his thoughts and views to us.
3 ದಿನಗಳಿಂದ 3 ತಿಂಗಳುಗಳವರೆಗೆ ನಡೆಯುವ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವಿವರವಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ಮಹಾರಾಣಿ ಪಪ್ಪುಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರೇ ಮತ್ತು ಮಹನೀಯರೇ, ಈ ದಿನ ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸುದಿನ. ಏಕೆಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಪ್ರತಿಭಾವಂತ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಚಲನಚಿತ್ರ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರು, ನಟರು, ಬರಹಗಾರರು ಮತ್ತು ಕನ್ನಡ ಚಲನಚಿತ್ರೋದ್ಯಮದ ಪ್ರವರ್ತಕರೊಬ್ಬರು ಇಂದು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರೇ ತಲಕಾಡು ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸಯ್ಯ ನಾಗಾಭರಣ, TN ನಾಗಾಭರಣ. ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತ ಇವರು ಕನ್ನಡ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಪ್ರಾಧಿಕಾರದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯನಿರ್ವಹಿಸುತ್ತಿದ್ದು, ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಹಿನಿ ಮತ್ತು ಪರ್ಯಾಯ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಕೆಲವೇ ಚಲನಚಿತ್ರ ನಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಇವರು ಒಬ್ಬರು, ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರಲ್ಲಿ ಇವರು ಒಬ್ಬರು. ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ, ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ, ರಾಜ್ಯ ಹೀಗೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಇವರು ಭಾಜನರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರ ಚಲನಚಿತ್ರಗಳು ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಚಲನಚಿತ್ರೋತ್ಸವಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪನೋರಮಾ ವಿಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನಗೊಂಡಿವೆ. ಬಿಡುವಿರದ ಕೆಲಸದ ನಡುವೆಯೂ ಇಂದು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ತಾವು ಇರುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಕೃತಜ್ಞರಾಗಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ತಾಯಿ ನುಡಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕೆಂದು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ ನಾನು ಕೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಸರ್.
ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ಬಹುಭಾಷಾ ಮನಸ್ಸುಗಳೇ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ಇದು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರು ತಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದಂತಹ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೊಬ್ಬರು ಪ್ರೀತಿಸುವಾಗ, ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೊಬ್ಬರು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗ, ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೊಬ್ಬರು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂದೇಶಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಟ್ಟಿಸುವಾಗ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆಯೇ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಭಾಷಾತೀತವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬದುಕು ನಡೀತದೆ. ಅದು ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತವೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಖಗಳು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತವೆ. ಅವುಗಳ ಮುಖಾಂತರವೇ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೊಬ್ಬರು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನುಕುಲದ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಒಂದು ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಮಾನವ. ಆದರೆ ಕಾರಣಾಂತರಗಳಿಂದ ಆಯಾ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ, ಆಯಾ ಪರಿಸರಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ಭಾಷೆಗಳು ಉದ್ಭವವಾದವು. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಆ ಭಾಷೆಗಳ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬದುಕು ಕಟ್ಟಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಯಿತು. ಎಷ್ಟು ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದಂತಹ ಬದುಕನ್ನು ಅದು ಕಟ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಆ ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾತನಾಡುವ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಜನ ನಮಗೆ ಸೀಮಿತವಾದ ಒಂದು ಬದುಕಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಹಳ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನವನ್ನು ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಹೋದರು. ಜೀವನ ಕ್ರಮ ಒಂದು, ಜೀವನ ಶೈಲಿ ಒಂದು ಆ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪಯಣ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಸುಮಾರು 7,000 ಭಾಷೆಗಳು ಹೇಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡವು, ಹೇಗೆ ಅವು ತಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಶೈಲಿಯನ್ನು, ತಮ್ಮ ಭಾತೃತ್ವವನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಸಾಬೀತು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡವು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಭಾಷೆಗಳಿದ್ದೂ ಕೂಡ, ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ವೈವಿಧ್ಯವಾದಂತಹ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಸಂಪತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಕಾರಣಾಂತರಗಳಿಂದ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ನಿಧಾನವಾಗಿ ತನ್ನ ಪ್ರಭಾವವನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಬೀರ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಮೂಲತಃ ಅವರು ಮೊದಲು ಮಾಡಿದಂಥ ವಸಾಹತುಶಾಹಿ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯಿಂದ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಕಾರಣ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನ ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಜಾಗತೀಕರಣವಾದ ಮೇಲಂತೂ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಅದು ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಬೀರ್ತಾ ಬಂತು ಅಂದರೆ ಅದೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಬದುಕಿಗೆ ದಾರಿ ಅನ್ನುವಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಆದರೆ ಯುನೆಸ್ಕೋ ಅಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಮಹಾಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ, ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿಯೋದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಇವತ್ತು 2.3 ಬಿಲಿಯನ್ ಪೀಪಲಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಯರ್ಲಿ 40% of the world population lack access to education in their own language. ಈ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ದುಃಖ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕಪ್ಪ ದುಃಖ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? ಬಹು ವೈವಿಧ್ಯಮಯವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಳ್ಕೋತಾ ಏಕಮುಖಿ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯತ್ತ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ನಮ್ಮ ನಿಜವಾದಂತಹ ತನ್ನತನವನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ದಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಹಾಕಲಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಆದರೆ 1999ರ ನಂತರದ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ, ಅಂದರೆ 2000ದಿಂದ ಸತತವಾಗಿ ಈ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನದ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಾವು ಮತ್ತೆ ಜಾಗೃತರಾಗಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಗಮನ ಹರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಆತ್ಮೀಯರೇ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಭಾಷೆಯು ಸುಂದರ ಮತ್ತು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿ ಆತ್ಮೀಯ. ಆಯಾ ಸಮುದಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ಆಯಾ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಆತ್ಮೀಯತೆಯ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ಆ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆತ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ವ್ಯವಹರಿಸಬಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆತನ ಅಂತರಾಳದ ಮನಸ್ಸು ತೆರೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಹೃದಯದ ಮಾತುಗಳು ತೆರೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಇಂತಹ ಹೃದಯದ ಮಾತನಾಡುವ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆ ದಿನವನ್ನು ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಆಚರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಬಹುಭಾಷೆಗಳು ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಆ ಬಹುಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಈಗ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬದುಕಿನ ಆಯಾಮಗಳನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಹಲವು ಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕಲೀಲೇಬೇಕಾದಂತಹ ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯತೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ತಲುಪಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಆದರೆ ಆ ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಮೀರಿದಂತಹ ತನ್ನತನವನ್ನು ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ? ಅದು ಕೇವಲ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯಿಂದ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಅದು ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ವಿಚಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಅರಿವು ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ವಿಸ್ತಾರ ಮತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದಂತಹ ಬದ್ಧತೆ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಈ ಬದ್ಧತೆ ಬೇಕು ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ? ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆ ಜೀವಂತವಾಗಿರ್ತದೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿ ಜೀವಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಹಲವು ಒತ್ತಡಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯೆಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಆ ಭಾಷೆ ತನ್ನ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಭಾಷೆಯ ಜೊತೆ ಜ್ಞಾನ, ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಇವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಮೇಳೈಸಿಕೊಂಡಿರುವುದರಿಂದ ಬದುಕು ಕೂಡ ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಳೈಸಿಕೊಂಡಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಯಾವ ಭಾಷೆ ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿ ಜೀವಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ ತನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಎರವಲುಗಳನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಗಳ ಒತ್ತಡವನ್ನು ಸಹಿಸಿಕೊಂಡೆ, ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯತನವನ್ನು ತನ್ನದಾಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡೇ ತನ್ನತನವನ್ನು ಸಾಬೀತು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅಂತಹ ಭಾಷೆಗಳು ನಿಜವಾಗಿಯೂ ತನ್ನ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನು ಅಗಾಧವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತವೆ, ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, ಬದ್ಧತೆಯಿಂದ ಕೂಡಿರ್ತವೆ ಮತ್ತು ಅದು ಒಂದು ಉದಾಹರಣೆಯಾಗಿ ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಲ್ತವೆ. ಇಂತಹ ತಮ್ಮತನವನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದಾಗಿ ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆ ಇವತ್ತು ತನ್ನ 2500 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಇತಿಹಾಸವನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೆಲುಕು ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಕೇವಲ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯವಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನ ಒಳಗೊಂಡಂತಹ ಭಾಷೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸಾಬೀತು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಎಂದು ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ದಾರ್ಶನಿಕರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನ ಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಬಸವಣ್ಣವರು ಹೇಳುವ ಹಾಗೆ ಇವನಾರವ 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 ಎಂದೆನಿಸದಿರಯ್ಯ, ಇವ ನಮ್ಮವ ಎಂದೆಣಿಸಯ್ಯ. ವಿಶ್ವ ಮಾನವ ತತ್ವವನ್ನ 5ನೇ ಶತಮಾನದಿಂದಲೂ ಸತತವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿರುವ ಏಕೈಕ ಭಾಷೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆ. ಈ ವಿಶ್ವ ಮಾನವ ತತ್ವದ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಇದೆ ಎನ್ನುವುದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಇಂತಹ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮದಾಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಮ್ಮತನವನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಮುಂದಿನ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ಉಳಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಯುನೆಸ್ಕೋ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವ ಹಲವು ಸಲಹೆಗಳ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಸರಕ್ಕೆ ಒಗ್ಗುವಂತಹ ಹಲವು ಕಾರಣಗಳನ್ನು ಹುಡುಕಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಸರದ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಬೇರೆಯೇ ಇರಬಹುದು. ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಅಳವಡಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಇಡುವ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸರಿಸಮನಾಗಿ ಬೇರೆಯೇ ಆದ ಯೋಚನೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಈ ಹುಡುಕಾಟ ನಮಗೆ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೆ ಜಾಗತಿಕ ಮಾರುಕಟ್ಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಶಿನ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಇಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೇವೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮತನದ, ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷೆಯ, ನಮ್ಮ ಪದಕೋಶಗಳ ಇವುಗಳ ವಿಜೃಂಭಣೆಯನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಕುವೆಂಪು ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣು ಕಿವಿಗಳನ್ನು ತೆರೆದಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡು ನಮ್ಮ ಹೃದಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪರಿಕರಗಳನ್ನು ಒಟ್ಟುಗೂಡಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಭಾಷೆ ಹಾಗೆಯೇ ತನ್ನ ಕಾಲಮಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಯಾಯ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಹೋದದ್ದು. ಅಂತಹ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಹೊಸ ಪದಗಳ, ಹೊಸ ವಾಕ್ಯ ರಚನೆಗಳ, ಹೊಸ ಅರ್ಥಕೋಶಗಳ, ಸಾವಿರಾರು ಪದಕೋಶಗಳ ಒಟ್ಟಾರೆ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ನಿಧಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಆ ನಿಧಿಯನ್ನು ಬಳಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ನಿಜವಾಗಿಯೂ ಗಟ್ಟಿಯಾಗುವ ಹಾಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಅದು ಸದಾಕಾಲ ಜೀವಂತವಿರುವ ಹಾಗೆ, ನಿರಂತರ ಕಲಿಕೆಗೆ ಅದು ಅಸ್ತ್ರವಾಗುವ ಹಾಗೆ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸಬೇಕು. ನಿಜ, ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ, ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ, ಆ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಭಂಡಾರ ಬಹುಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಹೊಸ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾ ಪ್ರಬಂಧಗಳು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲೇ ಬರುತ್ತಿದೆ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡೇ, ಔದ್ಯೋಗಿಕ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಬಹುಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡೇ, ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಬೇಕೆಂಬ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿಕೊಂಡಿರುವ ಈ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ, ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ, ಜ್ಞಾನ ಭಂಡಾರ ಬಹುಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇರುವಂತೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು. ಅನುವಾದಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾದಂಥ ಸಿದ್ಧತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಭವಿಷ್ಯದ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಕಲಿಯುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಆಕರಗಳನ್ನು ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸಬೇಕು. ಅಂತಹ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಆಕರಗಳನ್ನು ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸುವ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಬಹುಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಆ ರೀತಿಯ ಹಲವು 10 ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನು ಹಮ್ಮಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಈ ದಿಸೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರಂತರ ಕಲಿಕೆಗೆ ಆಕರಗಳು ಸಿದ್ಧವಾಗ್ತವೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರಂತರವಾದಂತಹ ಕನ್ನಡದ ಬಳಕೆಯಾಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಿರಂತರ ಕಲಿಕೆ, ನಿರಂತರ ಬಳಕೆ, ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡ ಕಾಯಕವಾಗುವಂತಹ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕನ್ನಡ ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರು ಮತ್ತು ಕನ್ನಡ ಮನಸ್ಸುಗಳು ಒಟ್ಟಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದಂತಹ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟ. ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸುವ, ಬೆಳೆಸುವ, ಅದರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಬದುಕನ್ನು ಹಸನು ಮಾಡುವ ಈ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ತಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿ ಆ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬನಿಗೂ ಅವನ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹಿತ ಮತ್ತು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮುದ ಮತ್ತು ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೆಮ್ಮೆಯದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಆತ ಅನುಭವಿಸಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಈಗ ತಾನೇ ಉಮಾ ಅವರು ತಮಿಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಕೊನೆಯ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ನನಗೆ ಮೈ ಜುಮ್ಮೆಂತು. ಹೌದು, ಹಾಗಿರಬೇಕು. ನನ್ನ ಭಾಷೆ ಇದು ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಆತ್ಮಸ್ಥೈರ್ಯದ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಆ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಒಡನೆ ಒಂದು ಬಾಂಧವ್ಯವನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಅಂತಹ ಬಾಂಧವ್ಯದ ದಿನ ಇದು. ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಟ್ಟಾಗಿ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಹಲವು 10 ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿ ನಿರಂತರ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಅದು ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಕಾಯ್ತದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಬದ್ಧತೆಯೊಡನೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನವನ್ನು ಆಚರಿಸೋಣ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಶುಭವಾಗಲಿ. ಸಿರಿಗನ್ನಡಂ ಗೆಲ್ಗೆ, ಸಿರಿಗನ್ನಡಂ ಬಾಳ್ಗೆ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಶುಭ ದಿನ.
ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಪ್ರಾಬಲ್ಯದ ನಡುವೆಯೂ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಭಾಷೆಗಳು ತಮ್ಮ ಅಸ್ಮಿತೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಉಳಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿವೆ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೂ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನ ಉಳಿಸಲು ಹಾಗೂ ಬೆಳೆಸಲು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಮನದಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ TN ನಾಗಾಭರಣ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಈ ದಿನ ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೊಬ್ಬ ಗೌರವ ಅತಿಥಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಡಿ.ಎನ್. ಶಂಕರ್ ಭಟ್. ಇವರು ವಿಶ್ವವಿಖ್ಯಾತ ಭಾಷಾಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಜ್ಞರಾಗಿದ್ದು, ಇವರ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಕೇಳುವುದು ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಂದು ಅಮೂಲ್ಯ ಅವಕಾಶವಾಗಿದೆ. ಇವರು ಭಾರತೀಯ ಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಥಾನ ಸೇರಿದಂತೆ ವಿಶ್ವದ ಹಲವು ಪ್ರತಿಷ್ಠಿತ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯ ಮತ್ತು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿವಿಧ ಹುದ್ದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಥಾನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಭಟ್ ಅವರು ಕನ್ನಡ ಮತ್ತು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಲೇಖನಗಳನ್ನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು, ಅವುಗಳು ರಾಜ್ಯದಾದ್ಯಂತ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಭಾಷಾ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನದ ಸಮುದಾಯದಿಂದ ಮೆಚ್ಚುಗೆ ಗಳಿಸಿವೆ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷಾ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿದ ಸೇವೆಗಾಗಿ ಪ್ರತಿಷ್ಠಿತ ನಾಡೋಜ ಗೌರವವನ್ನು ಹಂಪಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯ ನೀಡಿದರೆ, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸರ್ಕಾರವು ಅತ್ಯುನ್ನತ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿಯಾದ ಹಂಪಿ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಿ ಗೌರವಿಸಿದೆ. ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಭಟ್ ರವರು ತಮ್ಮ 80ರ ಹರೆಯದಲ್ಲೂ ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಿಸಿದ ಹಲವಾರು ಕೆಲಸಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದಿಗೂ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಸಕ್ರಿಯವಾಗಿ ತೊಡಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ಉಪಸ್ಥಿತಿಗಾಗಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್. ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ಮಾತುಗಳನ್ನ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕೆಂದು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ ನಾನು ಕೋರುತ್ತೇನೆ.
If you talk to a man in the language that he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech. I do believe that many of us must have understood what he said, and it would have touched the minds and hearts of many people who are present today. Thank you once again, sir. It is indeed a delight to have and a great opportunity to listen to a wonderful, to a world-renowned linguist like Professor D.N. Shankar. He has served in various roles and positions in some of the prestigious universities and institutions of the world, including CIIL. Professor Sankarabhat has written many books and articles in Kannada and English that have earned appreciation from across the globe, especially the linguistic community. He was conferred the prestigious title Nadoja by Hampi University and Pampa Award by the government of Karnataka, which is the highest literary honor for his contributions to the field of Kannada linguistics. Professor Bhatt, even at the age of 80, he quietly continues to work on Kannada linguistics. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. And I also take this opportunity to invite you, sir, to kindly inspire us and talk to us on it and share with us some of your thoughts. Kindly take your time, sir.
ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದನ್ನು ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ನನಗೆ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ಹೋಗಿದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ರಿಟೈರ್ ಆಗಿ ಸುಮಾರು ವರ್ಷ ಆಯ್ತು. ಬರೆಯುವುದನ್ನೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಿದ್ರು ನಾನು ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡೆ.
So the microphone comes. Maybe they are unable to listen.
There is a confusion among parents as well as also some scholars regarding the distinction between teaching of English as a second language and the use of English as the medium of instruction. It would be all right, I suppose, if children are taught to speak in English from the first standard itself. But it would be better if they are taught to read and write in English after they have learned to do so in their own mother tongue or the local language. This is for two important reasons. The first reason is that by the time children join the school, they have already attained fluency in their mother tongue or the local language, like Kannada. It is therefore easy for them to learn to read and write in that language. Compared to this, they have yet to learn English, and hence reading and writing in it while they are only learning it would be a burden. The second reason is that learning to read in Kannada is very easy as compared to English, because Kannada does not have any spelling problems like English. Spelling problems are troublesome to children while learning to read, mainly because they make it difficult for children to recognize the relationship between letters that occur in the writing of words and the sounds that are used in forming words. It's only when they are able to recognize this relationship that they are able to read fluently. But in Kannada also, words that have been recently borrowed from Sanskrit do give rise to some amount of spelling problem. Kannada's own words require only 31 letters to write them, and the relationship between these letters and these sounds usually is direct and straightforward. Hence, but in order to write Sanskrit borrowings, one needs to additional 18 or 20 letters, because Kannada has an unnecessary rule that they must be written as they are written in Sanskrit, while all other borrowings are written as they are pronounced. Since none of these 18 or 20 letters are related to any additional sounds in reading, they give rise to spelling problems. In order to overcome this problem, we can restrict the reading of children in the beginning to Kannada songs, short tales, etc. That is, words occurring in these texts use only Kannada's own 31 letters. We can introduce the remaining 18 or 20 letters like aspirated consonants after a year or so. That is, after the children have learned to read quickly and correctly. If you do this, their learning would proceed smoothly. We can more easily teach children to read English after they have attained fluency in Kannada reading, because they would then be able to transfer the reading skills that they have already obtained to the English reading, and hence the spelling problem of English would not be very troublesome to them. The second question is whether English or mother tongue should be used as the medium of instruction from the first standard itself. The most important point that we need to recognize here is that while teaching subjects like maths, science, history, etc., our interest is in making the students understand and appreciate the subject. We will succeed in making the students understand the subject only if we use as our medium of instruction a language that the children can understand very well. Children need to learn English at least for 6 or 7 years before they can understand subjects like math, science, etc. in their language. If we try to teach them such subjects in English before they have obtained this ability to understand it, they would only learn it what is taught by us without actually understanding it. All the studies that have been carried out so far on this point support this claim. For example, there's an interesting South African case. People of the old apartheid government feared that if children of native people are taught in English from the first standard itself, they may join together and oppose apartheid. It was therefore decided in 1955 that they must be taught in their own mother tongue until 9th standard. But this actually helped them in that they were able to go well ahead in their learning of subjects like math, science, etc., as compared to children who were learning them in English. In a similar situation in China, a similar result was obtained in 1988. It was decided that in some schools, children should be used as the children should have as a medium instruction, Chinese as the medium instruction from the first standard instead of English. After some years, when the knowledge of these children in math, science, history, etc. was compared with that of children who had English as their medium instruction, the former were found to be ahead of the later. The children in Chinese medium were also more active in the class and were asking questions. On the other hand, children with English as medium of instruction were rather inactive in the class and were unable to ask any questions. It is evident that children can ask questions only when they understand what is being taught. One idea that appeared to support the use of English as the medium of instruction from the first standard itself is that children would then be exposed to English for a longer period, and hence they would learn English faster. But this has also turned out to be a mistaken idea. In Cameroon, for example, some children had English as the medium of instruction, while others had their own mother tongue as the medium of instruction. The latter were learning English only for 3 hours during a week. Then the English knowledge of these two sets of children was compared. After 3 years, they still learned the mother tongue as the medium of instruction. Had double the amount of knowledge of English as compared to children who had English as the medium of instruction. Many such studies have clearly shown that children must have their mother tongue or a language which they can speak fluently as the medium of instruction if they are to be successful in their studies. That is all I have to say.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful and thought-provoking words. Your work is truly an inspiration to the young generation, and I do hope that many will follow your footsteps. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us one of our former directors of CIIL as our chief guest, and he needs no introduction. He is none other than Professor Uday Narayan Singh. He presently is the Dean of MIT Center for Linguistic Studies at MIT University, Gurugram. Many of us know him as an eminent linguist, but he is also a versatile writer. Apart from many of his academic research and projects, he is also a poet, a dramatist, an essayist, and he has also many literary publications. Besides English, he also writes in Bangla, Maithili, and Hindi. It is a great pleasure to have you, sir, with us today, and we do hope that you will enlighten us by your thoughts and views on mother languages.
ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಅಥವಾ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಬೋಧನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಸರಳವಾಗಿ ಕಲಿಯುತ್ತಾರೋ ಎನ್ನುವಂತ ವಿಚಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಿಸಿದಂತೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದಂತ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶಂಕರ ಭಟ್ರ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಇಂತಹ ಸುದಿನದಂದು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಮಾಜಿ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರೊಬ್ಬರು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅತಿಥಿಯಾಗಿ ಇರುವುದು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಗ್ಯವೇ ಸರಿ. ಇವರಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಪರಿಚಯದ ಅಗತ್ಯವಿಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತ ಇವರು ಗುರುಗ್ರಾಮದ ಅಮಿಟಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮಿಟಿ ಭಾಷಾ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಕೇಂದ್ರದ ಡೀನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯನಿರ್ವಹಿಸುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಉದಯ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಸಿಂಹ. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹಲವರು ಇವರನ್ನು ಪ್ರಖ್ಯಾತ ಭಾಷಾ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿ ಎಂದು ತಿಳಿದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇವರು ಬಹುಮುಖ ಪ್ರತಿಭೆಯುಳ್ಳ ಬರಹಗಾರರಾಗಿದ್ದು ಅನೇಕ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಸಂಶೋಧನೆ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳ ಕುರಿತು ಲೇಖನಗಳನ್ನ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರೊಬ್ಬ ಕವಿ, ನಾಟಕಕಾರ, ಪ್ರಬಂಧಕಾರ ಮತ್ತು ಅನೇಕ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಿಕ ಕೃತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಪ್ರಕಟಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೆಂಗಾಲಿ, ಮೈಥಿಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಹಿಂದಿ ಭಾಷೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೃತಿಗಳನ್ನ ರಚಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೀವು ಇಂದು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗಿರುವುದು ತುಂಬಾ ಹರ್ಷದಾಯಕ ವಿಚಾರ. ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಆಲೋಚನೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನಗಳನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕೆಂದು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ನಾನು ವಿನಂತಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಮೇ ಐ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಉದಯ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಸಿಂಹ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ಓವರ್.
Thank you all for calling me. सबसे पहले तो अहाँ सबके मातृभाषा के अभिनंदन करऽ चाहे छी। विशेष रूप से नागभरना साहब का, टीपी पटनायक जी का, प्रोफेसर DNS भट्ट के, वर्तमान निदेशक शैलेंद्र मोहन जी के, सबके। मैथिली हमार पितृभाषा थी, मातृभाषा नहीं थी। मुदा मैथिली में विद्यापति एक बहुत नीक एक दूटा पंक्ति लिखने छथि। Let me read out those 2 lines of Vidyapati from Maithili. And he says, Desil bayana sabjan mittha, tai taisan japao avahattha. So basically what he's saying is that your own language, home language, is sabjan mittha, is dear to everybody. And therefore, it is not necessary to speak in Sanskrit. As Nagbharana has said, It is not necessary to speak in English. So English and Sanskrit those days were almost in the similar kind of situation. In the Shastriya Bhasha, in the classical and the elite language, you can actually speak in Abhahatta. You can speak in people's language, and that people's language will take you far away. Now I switch to my mother tongue. Before Tagore appeared, 2 years before Tagore was born, we had a very famous poet called Ishwar Gupta in Bangla. আর ঈশ্বর গুপ্ত মাতৃভাষা বলে একটি কবিতা লিখেছিলেন। সেই মাতৃভাষা কবিতার 4টি লাইন, 4টি পংক্তি আমি বলি। মায়ের কোলেতে শুয়ে, উরুতে মস্তক থুয়ে, খল খল সহাস্য বদন, অধরে অমৃত খরে, আধো আধো মৃদু স্বরে, আধো আধো বচন রচন. What he says in these 4 lines is that the child sleeping on the lap of his mother is all smiles, and in his inimitable manner, it is on his lips, he is using the mother tongue, and he is using his own language, mother's language, to construct an expression. What a beautiful way of describing a child, how exactly the child inherits the mother's language, sleeping on her lap, playing with her. And that's something which has been actually very important for the development, for mental development, psychological development of everybody. We all know that. And as Dr. Umarani has pointed out, that it is not just question of one's mother tongue, one's own mother tongue. It's question of everybody's mother tongue. And we are very fortunate that we have always had simplistic Indian languages who could speak in all languages or many languages. In fact, anytime Professor Patnaik used to come to my house, he would speak to my wife in Bangla. And that is very surprising that, it will be very easy for people to transmit or to transfer, to transform from one language to the other. At the Institute, I could easily see that Rajesh Satdeva spoke in so many languages. He dabbled between Marathi to Punjabi, and via that route, he also picked up Kannada, and of course, his Hindi is very strong, and he writes in English. So that, you can easily see that there are people who are doing this all the time, that is shifting or shuffling among or between mother tongues. These are all actually languages which are orally spoken. Many of those languages are not necessarily the languages in which we can write. We know, I'm sure if you ask Rajesh to write in Marathi, I'm sure you'll be finding it difficult. But speaking, of course, he can manage. So similarly, speech is something which takes a primacy over writing. And all mother tongues basically are spoken varieties, are speeches. And the mother tongue concept has been actually discussed and debated in linguistics, in literature for a long time. And in the context of mother tongue, we can always talk about the issue of oralcy. Because what do you prefer? What do you actually emphasize on? Are you going to emphasize on the oral aspect of language, or are you going to emphasize on the written aspect of language? Because quite often, when someone says that I speak, ho, I speak, toda, or kota, or garaba. Now, the question immediately, somebody else who's listening to you is going to ask you, but is it something which is a language, or is it dialect? Is it written? But this question of writing somehow, disarms many people. and they then feel very helpless to say that, oh, and starts giving apologies, like as if not being able to write is something which is very problematic, and that is something which should not be the situation. And in fact, I remember there's a dissertation by Rathabil Marriott Posa in 2011. And in her dissertation, while talking about the place of oral literature in 21st century in the context of the African situation, Basotho proverbs, he says that oral literature is not only assumed to be dynamic and resilient, but it is also perceived to be timeless. And in fact, there are many other people who have similar sentiments, they've expressed similar sentiments. Shitemi is another one who says that oral literature is art form that has withstood the weather and storms of time and the ravages of the convergence and divergence of cultures, languages, lifestyles, and environmental dynamism. So in this kind of work, Shitemi's work is Discourse on Semiotic and Functional Perspectives of Narratology. In the context of Africa, once again, he's said this. So I think it is very important for us to understand that the mother tongue, which is perhaps only oral variety, is something which needs a lot of care, a lot of concern, a lot of practice, and a lot of use, because we can't really push them in a manner as if to make Ghalib's statement, "Ishrat-e qatra hai darya mein fana ho jana," as if, because Masood Hussain Khan, in speaking on inaugural speech in one of those Indian Congress of Linguistics, he had said that, you're always asking us to go to the mainstream. What do you mean by the mainstream? Mainstream is Majdhar. So do you want to actually push our mother tongues to the mainstream and drown them? So this is the question that he was raising. And I think he was very right when he said that, that it is very important for us to understand that we of course will know that a lot of people who are only spoken language speakers, they feel that the value of the material world perhaps will be much more vis-a-vis their language if they were able to write. So this is a kind of feeling some people may have. But let us actually think if writing could be called the destiny of speech. Or is it something which is only a technique to render spoken word through pictorial signs? Signs that could be read by anybody and everybody, maybe the next generation also, iconically, to understand what the earlier generation had stated. So if it is a technology, it is fine. But if it becomes a tool of oppression, then it is something which is very dangerous. So that is something which we have to understand. How exactly are we using writing? Are we using writing system to differentiate between oral languages? These are the oral languages, these are the mother tongues which are written, and these are the ones which are not written. And therefore, they could be subjected to any kind of maltreatment, mistreatment, doesn't matter. What matters is those who could somehow cross the threshold of writing. So this is another big problem which I thought I will push before you. Because philosophers like Rousseau were very highly suspicious of writing, because he thought this to be an instrument of oppression, because its various powers and capacities were exercised by the few at the expense of many. We know that even in those languages which we write, and Kannada for instance, there are a very large number of people who can't write, who can only speak beautiful language, but he can't write. are we not going to allow them to come to the mainstream? Are we not going to allow them to occupy the center stage? That is the question Rousseau was actually raising. And I think this is very crucial for us to understand. It is not surprising that Saussure would take a position that writing has a corrupting influence on speech. And in his scheme of linguistics, therefore, oral has primacy over the written. Because after all, in chronology, speech comes before writing. And there is no recorded instance of a culture which has developed writing before it was able to speak. No. In classic essay called Plato's Pharmacy, I'm sure some of you have read the essay by Derrida, Jacques Derrida. Derrida says that Plato had a deep mistrust of writing because he was influenced by his teacher Socrates, who made a virtue of writing nothing. He would only speak. And all the dialogues and discussions that you actually hear from the Greek tradition is basically conversation. Once again, the basis of this belief was that the written word has a corrupting influence on spoken language, and through that, on the truth-seeking exercise of human reason. As we discuss, as we are talking, as we are debating, what are we doing actually? We are seeking truth. What is truth? We are trying to seek truth about our mother tongues. And in that kind of reasoning, anything which is writing can create an impediment. Now, in grammatology also, Derrida admits that speech-writing opposition was central to all binary distinctions. Now, whatever binary distinction that you talk about, say for instance, Sanskriti and Prakriti, nature and culture, reason and rhetoric, philosophy and literature, Sahitya or Darshana, concept and metaphor, male and female, whatever dichotomous pairs that you can come about, spoken language would always presuppose the possibility of writing, which is destined to be the only way human speech passes through, from being natural to being cultural. So does it mean that to be cultural, you need to be actually writing something? No, not that. Of course not. We know that there are beautiful cultures which are available, and since Nagavarnaji is from the field of performing arts, he would know very well that the body language is such a beautiful thing. And in Arun Mukhopadhyay's plays, Arun is the father of Suman Mukhopadhyay, the famous film director in Bengali who got national award by actually making films based on Nabarun Bhattacharya's stories. Nabarun is son of Mahashweta Devi, which are full of cuss words, which are full of dialects, which are full of fights and angers and oral violences. Now, Arun Mukhopadhyay, in one of his famous plays, Marit Shangbad, on the stage, since I've seen those play, I could easily describe. For 5 minutes, he didn't speak. Various parts of his body actually moved. What an expression! You don't need any language. Actually, our mothers teach us the way we should really walk, the way we should talk, the way we should move, the way we should present ourselves, which is why the importance of mother tongue. And I think it is very important for us to understand that the sense of music actually comes up mostly through our mother tongue. And the fact that this mother tongue or the language of music is universal has been proven by many. Today, from the temple music of Tamil Nadu, Tagore has taken so much in his songs. And his niece would travel from Mysore to Calcutta to Tagore to bring up newer and newer Kannada songs and sing those songs to Tagore. And what did Tagore do? He would transform those songs. It's fusion music. He will transform those songs into the mold of his mother tongue, Bangla, and present them. In fact, many of those songs, if one starts singing, many of you who know Kannada songs would be surprised, Are, how is this in Bengali? Because these are universal languages. The language of music is universal. The language of body is universal. Language of mother is universal. It can reach from one corner to the other corner. In fact, melody does not need harmony. Good music, authentic music, pure melody, no need of dangerous supplement of harmony, can be actually fantastic. And that is something which Rousseau also reminded us. In 1909, February 20, that is a day earlier than today, in 1909, the famous Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Martinetti, he penned a particular manifesto called Futurist Manifesto. And at the turn of century, he advocated rejection of the past to bring in modernization and cultural rejuvenation in his celebration of speed, machinery, violence, youth, and industry. He says that we have been actually been very nice, writing in insipid poetry, the poetry of the Bhadraloka, far removed from reality, in a relaxed, civilized existence of gentry in Europe, perpetrating our colonial rule in different parts of the world before 1900 AD. But the time has now come for the violent intervention of many of those smaller languages, which have excellent universe of possibilities and poetry. And that is something which is the manifesto of the future. And this is something which he says in 1909, that the next century will be century of those unknown little languages which you've never heard of, which will come up. In fact, you would notice that many of those people like Octavio Paz, who have come up from the New World. A few days ago, I was speaking to the Mexico. Practically in the middle of night, I was giving a talk for their evening program on Tagore and Octavio Paz, a comparison. And I was saying that they realized after the First World War, that the model that they had, the model of Europe, will break down. Is not a model which will sustain them. There's a different model, the Asian model of Tagore, which they should actually practice. In fact, when Eminem took Tagore and his wife, Jennifer Camprubi, when they took his Bangla poetry into Spanish, it created a fantastic situation in the entire Latin American world, where the Latin American writers could, for the first time, see that it is not necessarily to follow only Shakespeare and Wordsworth and Milton and others. There are other models, there are Asian models which work fine. There are other kind of thought processes which also work. And that is something which has been predicted by this Italian poet long ago. So the question is, when Austin is asking in the Speech Act theory in 1971, how to do things with words. He of course created a Speech Act theory, a pragmatic position, which is valid for both written language and spoken language. But in our context, we should understand that he's also talking about the ways and the manners of speech. A man has to rid himself from the curse of groundedness. Now, will you call it a curse to be grounded, or will you call it a liberation? That is a question. Some people think that if you are grounded, that if you are only able to speak but not able to write, then you are grounded and you are bound. And I must have a liberty to free myself to be able to write. So this is a kind of dilemma that comes up for many of our languages. And this is very difficult to sometimes understand what exactly should be preferred. Because in the Hindi world, there is a proverb called Pran Jai for Vachana na Jai. If I've given you word that I will speak in such and such time at Mysore, then I should not falter. I should not fail myself. Pran Jai for Vachana na Jai. This is very important proverb, which is almost the quintessence of our rural life in the Hindi heartland, in the smaller villages. What does it say? What does it show? That Vachana, or the speech, has so much of importance that many of us, of course, in the Western concept would say, no, give it to me in writing. That you're going to give me an increment. Give it to me in writing that you are going to appoint me. No. If I have told you that I will appoint you, I'll keep my promise. So that's the kind of tradition that India always had and our mother tongues always had. So this is crucial, and I think it is very important for us to understand that one reason why we had so many commentaries of our texts is that basically we were oral culture. We would think, conceptualize, and write and present an idea in a place where different debaters, different logicians would meet, different Nayayikas, Nyaya Shastra people will meet and debate it out, fight it out orally. What exactly? In fact, 2 centuries ago, Bengal had a very interesting tradition called Kobir Lodai. I don't know if you know that. Kobir Lodai. It was purely oral. A theme will be given by the organizer of the event. Usually, Jamindars, kings used to be organizers of those events. And they will give you a theme. Once the theme is given, say for instance, Radha and Krishna, they give you a theme. Then one poet will get up and write within quote, or speak an instant poetry on Radha and Krishna. And the other poet is supposed to answer that. So other poet will immediately get up and give an answer to that. So, yeah, there was some disturbance from Jyoti. So kindly mute yourself so that you can hear me properly. So I think this was a tradition. This was the time when oralcy was given a lot of preference. And this was also the time because Marshall McLuhan, of course, came up with a theory of culture, which said that there are 4 epochs of history. And he thinks that oral tribe culture, manuscript culture, the Gutenberg galaxy, and the electronic age. This is how mankind developed. So we must actually transfer ourselves from oral tribe culture to electronic age to be able to survive. Now, there could be debates. We don't know whether you would agree, whether you would disagree. But earlier, I was always thinking, when I was writing about language planning, I was thinking that the only way to modernize is first you be standardized and then you be modernized. But today, many of the smaller languages, in fact, a few days ago, we just evaluated a Tangkhul Naga scholar who was talking about the music of Tangkhul Naga in the 226 villages, what kind of different kind of music that evolves and the kind of different instruments that they play. And everything is oral. There's nothing written. There's nothing written about it. Yes, of course, you can also write in Tangkhul Naga, but this is what he was actually investigating was purely oral culture. And he was saying that the variety and the richness that is possible to see in these varieties, these languages, is something which is wonderful. But there I could see, because there are situations like we had organized for a few years, I was part of the organization of the literary festival in Delhi, where we could actually bring some of these Naga and Mizo storytellers. It's like Dastan Goi. You know, those of you who know what is Dastan Goi in Urdu tradition will remember that it's a storytelling. It's kind of, you build a story after a story after a story, and it's a kind of a whole network or chain of stories. Similarly, you had also similar traditions in Northeast, and what a fantastic idea to be able to understand. And we had many of those speakers who came and narrated those stories, oral stories, and there were also, of course, somebody to interpret who would either in Hindi or in English would render it for us, for the listeners to understand what exactly they were saying. But many of these things that happened during that festival was also in purely oral situations. So you can actually transform yourself not through the standardization, but directly onto the modern platforms. Many of the oral speech communities are now very tech savvy, and they are able to face the camera. They don't have any problem. They have no hesitation. They can speak to you. They can actually sing songs. And in my project called mediatingmultilingualism.com, if you just go to my website, you will find many, many examples of fantastic oral speeches. Those people do not have any shame to speak in Hadoti and speak in Mewati or Marwari or any one of those languages in which we were actually trying to interview them. They will sing, they will dance, they will speak, and they don't need preparation. They don't need a PowerPoint. They are powerful enough in their oral speech, in their oralcy, to be able to speak. I think that is something which was wonderful. Although some of us subscribe to Marshall McLuhan's argumentation that the technology is something which had to come and the oral had to disappear. But it's not really a war against orality. When we say that National Literacy Mission under the Ministry of Education, in the National Literacy Mission, whatever we do, we're not fighting oralcy. We are fighting illiteracy. Because oral capability of using one's mother tongue is one kind of ability, and not being able to write it down or record it down is another kind of ability. So this is something which we have to understand that. And in this context, it will be good to look at Eric Redling's work, 2006, called Speaking of Dialect. There are many, many other kinds of studies which have talked about various systems of configuration and the debate between the speech and the writing. And Walter Ong, for instance, had also come up with a theory of orality and literacy. Walter Ong in 1982 has a book called Orality and Literacy, the Technologizing of the Word. Technologizing of the word, not word, of the word. And he's talking about this orality and literacy should be ideally understood historically in terms of development of oral cultures into written cultures. It is not that one is primitive and one is modern. One has to understand that each one of them has its own strength, and that strength should somehow be allowed to be preserved. Now, this can be preserved provided we believe in a theory of multilingualism, provided we believe in the policy of multiculturalism. Because one language, one country, one party, one leader, that's not something for which we had all these world wars. We actually fought those wars to come to democracy. And democracy is something where you have the right to differ, where you have right to question, where you have right to critique. And that is the beauty of this part of the world, that here, if you had Advaitavadi, you also had Dvaitavadi. You always had various kinds of opinion in this part of the world. So if you had people who would come with the godly given language of Islam along with the Mughal and Turk invasion, then you also had the Shankara, who would come up and give you the counter argument. So this has always been a country where we had many of the arguments. But supposing, take it for a moment, that we want to argue against the multilingual policy of the government, then what do we do? What are the possible multilingual arguments against multilingualism? I can think of about 7, 8, or 9 kind of possible arguments against multilingualism. One is, you can say that the cost factor of multilingual policy to maintain so many mother tongues is enormous. And therefore, we should not have so many mother tongues. We should not promote so many mother tongues. We should promote a few languages. Now, this is a bit dangerous kind of argumentation, that economic argumentation you are bringing forth to talk about this. Another argument is that, you see, multilingualism is nothing. Of course, we have heard Professor Patnaik always taught us to believe in a multilingual policy, but a lot of people will say that, no, see, you join multilingualism 1 with multilingualism 2 with monolingualism 1 with monolingualism 2 with monolingualism 3. Multilingualism is nothing but a sum total of so many monolingualism. So there should be a monolingual policy for Kannada, a monolingual policy for Tamil, a monolingual policy for Hindi, in implementing them on our spaces. And that is what is multilingual India. I don't think that will work. And that is not something which will work. This is another second line of argumentation a lot of people take. Third kind of argumentation is, look, our God of modern linguistics, Chomsky, talks about ideal speaker listener. So who can be ideal speaker listener? Unless you think of monolingualism. There should be one language with no variation, with no ups and downs. They should all be very ideal situation, and there should be an ideal speaker, an ideal listener, and their intuition is very important. Now, this is what exactly Lebov and Delheims and many other people have countered and counter-argued. And I don't think, I'm in love with Chomsky. In fact, I'm a Chomskyan grammarian by training. But this is no answer. I mean, this is not, Chomsky is not interested in talking about variation. So this is another kind of argumentation, that if you believe in ideal speaker-listener position, then you have to think against a multilingual policy. Fourth argument could be that language studies have always had the standard versus deviations, pure speech versus vulgar speech. Now, this is something which is very important. What is language purity? Can language be pure if you speak, all of us speak in just one manner, one way? I don't think that is a way to explain or justify, monolingualism. But some people actually do that. They argue against multilingualism, saying that, all this is vulgar Latin. All this is Prakrita. All this is Apabrashta, Apabramsha. But what did Vidyapati say? Vidyapati says that the Desila Vaina, the mother tongue, is beautiful in everybody's ears. Sabjanamittha. You can actually use Abhatta. Abhatta is the word for the broken Apabramsha, even degenerated Apabramsha that he's talking about. So I think this is something which is very important for us to understand, that many of these positions that people take, a lot of people think that there will be a wastage of learning time, wastage of effort, wastage of talent, if there are multiple languages. NEP 2020 talks about mother tongue as to be preferred as medium of instruction. But how can you do that? Somebody, I'm sure some bureaucrat will also come up and say that, look, Okay, the politicians will say that, but don't believe in them. Don't believe in that. I think it's very costly, very expensive to be able to create instruction materials in so many languages. How do we teach in so many languages? So that kind of argument sometimes Babus will give you. And the question that we often ask in census, what is your mother tongue? Well, I may not have just one mother tongue. I may have multiple mother tongues. Actually, there are situations where you speak 3-4 languages, naturally, in a flux. So what do you do in such a situation? There are many places in Jharkhand, they won't know which language they're speaking. So that is a problem. So our questioning is also, our surveying is also sometimes defective. Many parents may be very skeptical about this multilingual policy. They may say, no, my child must go through English medium because that's the medium which will take him to the whole world, outside world. Therefore, we can't believe in multilingual policy. So there are many such problems. There are many counter arguments that can be given. How will you guarantee freedom and democracy in a monistic world? Can you? I don't think you can guarantee that there will be freedom and democracy in a world which is founded on monism. A lot of people will say, shouldn't there be a place for narrow nationalism? Tagore, if you remember, warned us long ago in his last essay, just before his death, and he received the honorary doctorate from Oxford, and he talks about crisis of civilization. And he says that one of the important crises of civilization is that you are actually believing in narrow nationalism, and it is because of your own conviction towards narrow nationalism that you are actually fighting the Second World War. In fact, before the Second World War, as you know, ended, Tagore died, and he'd written to many of the presidents and prime ministers of many nation states, telling them how dangerous it is to subscribe to this kind of monistic theory that Hitler was propagating. But who will listen to a poet? But I think in hindsight now we understand that we must listen to poets and linguists. In fact, there's a very interesting journal which Lekoff used to bring out called Poets and Linguists. I don't know if you know about that. That journal must be available, few issues must be available in CIL library also. So it is very important that poets and linguists can see the future, can see that it is a time of mother tongue. You cannot anymore restrict the mother tongues and push them aside. You must allow the mother tongues to come up. You would notice one important change in the Hindi film industry. And I am sure this is also happening in Telugu and Tamil film industry. You would notice that after about declaration of mother tongue, and after about 1971, where on the basis of fight for a mother tongue, a whole nation state has come about, Bangladesh has come about. There has been a lot of interesting change in the Hindi film industry. You would then hear a lot of Avadhi songs, a lot of Bhojpuri songs in the mainstream Hindi film. So whether it is Mr. Natwar Lal, enacted by Amitabh Bachchan, who would speak in language of Banaras, in a variety of speech, variety of mother tongue variety of Banaras, or if many other people, Shatrughan Sinha, you would see the heroes were emerging those days, and the film songwriters were writing. I had a lot of discussion with Javed Akhtar on this issue of writing in mother tongues, and he was saying that my nani used to write and sing in Avdhi, and I had this inner desire that to leave my Urdu sophisticated Hindi song poetry and go back to Audhi style of writing. I said, do that. I mean, who stops you from doing that? In fact, that is something which has become a craze these days. And if you look at the musical chart today on the most popular music, you would always find that various kinds of mother tongues are really interpenetrating into our own cultural space and becoming a great hit. So I thought that I will point out some of these issues to you, and I will only say that the time is here to celebrate mother tongue and not to denigrate them, not to believe that any monistic policy will work. Multicultural, multilingual, multispheral policy will work, and that has always been the strength of the Central Institute of Indian Languages, Bharatiya Bhasha Sansthan. And I'm sure many of you, under your leadership, present group of leaders, you will carry for that particular idea for which the institute was created, for which the country stands rock solid behind many of our multiistic policies. So thank you very much for calling me to be able to speak to you. And I thought I will today only use my oral power and not my written PowerPoint power to talk to you about the benefits of using mother tongue. And I'm so glad to see Professor Bhatt. At this age, he is still so active. We are all grateful to many of our stalwarts, Professor Patnaik, Professor Annamalai, many of our stalwarts, Professor Bhatt, who gave us or showed us the way. And the way was already shown by various other people. We recall Isak Tarapurwala, the teacher of Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, who taught in Calcutta as well as in Deccan College, Pune. We remember not only Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, we remember Sukumar Sen, the great linguist today, who was all for oralcy, and they gave us wonderful thing. In fact, Sukumar Sen wrote a beautiful essay connecting the Lithuanian folklore with Bengali folklore. You can easily see the beauties of many of their earlier generation work, S.M. Katre and Ashok Kelkar. We recall all of them that they were actually great connoisseurs of language and speech variety, and of course, my teacher, Prabodh Pandit. Thank you very much.
It is always interesting to listen to you, sir, touching on various subjects about mother languages. And I hope that everyone will agree with me, because what you have said and what you have told us today is very encouraging, and I hope that everyone will keep this in mind. Thank you, sir, once again for being with us and for speaking to us and sharing your thoughts. Now we have come to one of the most important parts of the program, that is the presidential address by our very own director, Professor Shailendra Mohan, who is the director of Central Institute of Indian Languages. Professor Shailendra Mohan is a practicing linguist, academician, and teacher for more than 19 years of teaching experience. He has done extensive field work and research on many major and minor languages of India. His contribution to language studies in India is commendable. He speaks Maithili, Hindi, and English very fluently and has worked on several mother tongues of our country. We are very happy to have our director here today. So I request our director to take his time.
ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆ ಕುರಿತು ಹಲವಾರು ಚಿಂತಕರು ಹಾಗೂ ಬರಹಗಾರರ ನಿಲುವುಗಳನ್ನ ಮುಂದಿಡುತ್ತಾ ತಮ್ಮ ನಿಲುವನ್ನು ಪ್ರತಿಪಾದಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಯೇ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಭಾಷೆ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ಮನದಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಉದಯ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಸಿಂಹಾರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಘಟ್ಟವನ್ನು ತಲುಪಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಅದುವೇ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರ ನುಡಿ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷತೆ ವಹಿಸಿರುವ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರಾದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶೈಲೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋಹನ್ ರವರು 19 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಗಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಬೋಧನಾ ಅನುಭವವನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದ್ದು, ಇವರು ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ನಿರತ ಭಾಷಾಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಜ್ಞ, ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ತಜ್ಞ ಹಾಗೂ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಾಗಿದ್ದು, ಅನೇಕ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಮತ್ತು ಸಣ್ಣ ಭಾಷೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯಾಪಕವಾದ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ಸಂಶೋಧನೆಗಳನ್ನ ನಡೆಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಷಾ ಅಧ್ಯಯನಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರ ಕೊಡುಗೆ ಶ್ಲಾಘನೀಯ ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಹಲವಾರು ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳ ಕುರಿತು ಇವರು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು ಮೈಥಿಲಿ, ಹಿಂದಿ ಮತ್ತು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನು ಬಹಳ ನಿರರ್ಗಳವಾಗಿ ಮಾತನಾಡುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಸರ್, ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷತೆಯನ್ನು ವಹಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ತಮ್ಮ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷೀಯ ನುಡಿಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕೆಂದು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೇನೆ. Now I invite our director for his presidential remarks. Sir, please take your time.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಪ್ರಣಾಮ್. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ವನ್ನಕಂ, ಸತ್ ಶ್ರೀ ಅಕಾಲ್, गुड आफ्टरनून, जोहार। इस समारोह के मुख्य अतिथि प्रोफेसर उदय नारायण सिंह, पूर्व निदेशक भारतीय भाषा संस्थान मैसूर एवं संप्रति डीन भाषा विज्ञान केंद्र एमईटी विश्वविद्यालय गुरुग्राम हरियाणा। विशिष्ट अतिथि श्री टीएस नागाभरणा जी, अध्यक्ष कन्नड़ विकास प्राधिकरण। प्रोफेसर डीएन शंकरा भट्ट, पूर्व वरिष्ठ अध्येता भारतीय भाषा संस्थान मैसूर। किसी कारणवश श्रीमती सुमन दीक्षित जी इस कार्यक्रम में भाग न ले सकी। भारतीय भाषा संस्थान तथा इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े हुए तमाम अधिकारीगण, श्रोता, सभी को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मातृभाषा दिवस 2022 की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। And I thank Professor Uday sir for such a wonderful and insightful lecture on understanding the issues of orality, literacy, as well as arguments for mother tongue. Thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful understanding of the mother tongue issues. जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि मातृभाषाओं तथा भाषाएं और सांस्कृतिक विविधता की महत्ता के बारे में जागरूकता पैदा करने के लिए हर वर्ष 21 फरवरी को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मातृभाषा दिवस मनाया जाता है। मातृभाषा किसी व्यक्ति, समाज, संस्कृति या राष्ट्र की पहचान होती है। इसके अतिरिक्त मातृभाषा संज्ञानात्मक एवं बौद्धिक विकास, संस्कृति से बेहतर जुड़ाव, बेहतर संचार कौशल, गणितीय कौशल इत्यादि के संदर्भ में मातृभाषाओं की महत्ता तथा उपयोगिता को कौन नहीं जानता। अपनी मातृभाषा को अच्छी तरह बोलना, पढ़ना, लिखना एवं समझना स्वाभिमान की बात है। मातृभाषाएं हमारी अपने पारंपरिक सांस्कृतिक मूल्यों और अपने जुड़ों से जुड़े रहने में मदद करती हैं और इसलिए भारत के संविधान अनुच्छेद 350 अ के अनुसार प्रत्येक राज्य को प्राथमिक शिक्षा वहां की मातृभाषाओं में प्रदान करने का प्रावधान किया गया है। And I would like to quote that it shall be endeavor of every state and every local authority within the state to provide adequate facilities for instruction in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education to children belonging to linguistic groups. भारत दुनिया के उन अनूठे भाषाई विविधता वाले देशों में से एक है जो दर्जनों भाषाओं, सैकड़ों बोलियां और 1000 से भी अधिक मातृभाषाओं का सागर अपने में समाहित किया हुआ है तथा बहुभाषावाद और बहुमातृ भाषावाद भारत में जीवन का सामान्य मार्ग है। मातृभाषाओं की महत्ता तथा उनकी स्थिति के बारे में विश्व का ज्ञान आकर्षित करने के लिए संयुक्त राष्ट्र महासभा ने 2022 से 2032 के दशक को स्वदेशी या स्थानीय भाषाओं का दशक भी घोषित किया है। So we are starting the indigenous decade of Indian languages, mother tongue languages from 2022 to 2032. So we'll have some programs, of course, to mark this decade of indigenous languages. हाल में ही भारत सरकार द्वारा जारी राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 में मातृभाषाओं की महत्ता तथा उपयोग पर बल देते हुए भारत की सभी मातृभाषाओं के विकास पर अधिकतम जोर दिया गया है। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 अनुशंसा करती है कि जहां तक संभव हो शिक्षा का माध्यम कम से कम कक्षा 5 तक मातृभाषा, स्थानीय या क्षेत्रीय भाषा में हो। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 के तहत भारत भाषाओं, मातृभाषाओं, बोलियां, शास्त्रीय भाषाओं, लुप्तप्राय तथा संकटग्रस्त भाषाओं इत्यादि को न केवल संजोने तथा संरक्षित करने के खड़े प्रयास किए गए हैं, बल्कि इनके चहुमुखी विकास हेतु समयबद्ध लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने की योजना का खाका भी तैयार किया गया है। मुझे यह बताते हुए अत्यंत हर्ष और संतोष का अनुभव हो रहा है कि भारत सरकार के इन प्रयासों को सफल बनाने की दिशा में हमारी भारतीय भाषा संस्थान मैसूर की भी अग्रणी भूमिका रहेगी। भारतीय भाषा संस्थान मैसूर तथा इसके विभिन्न क्षेत्रीय भाषा केंद्र तथा भारतीय भाषा संस्थान मैसूर के द्वारा संचालित विभिन्न परियोजनाएं जैसे स्कीम फॉर प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ इंडेंजर्ड लैंग्वेजेस, लुप्तप्राय भाषाओं के संरक्षण, नेशनल ट्रांसलेशन मिशन, राष्ट्रीय अनुवाद मिशन, राष्ट्रीय परीक्षण सेवा एवं भारतीय भाषाओं का सांख्यिकी तथा वैज्ञानिक निकाय एवं क्लासिकल लैंग्वेज सेंटर, विभिन्न शास्त्रीय भाषा केंद्र इत्यादि महती भूमिका का निर्वहन करेंगे। मैं आखिरी बात यह कहना चाहता हूं कि हमारा यह प्रयास होना चाहिए कि भारत दुनिया जैसे अनूठे भाषाई विविधता वाले देश में प्रत्येक दिवस मातृभाषा दिवस के रूप में मनाया जाए, या हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा अपने रोजमर्रा के दैनिक कार्यों को भारतीय भाषाओं में करके, कार्यालयों में पूर्ण रूप से राजभाषा के नियमों का पालन करके, संगोष्ठियों तथा बैठकों में अधिक से अधिक हिंदी तथा अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं को संचार के माध्यम के रूप में स्थान देकर कर सकते हैं। हमारा यह प्रयास भी होना चाहिए कि हम भी खुद एक नई भारतीय भाषा सीखें तथा दूसरों को भी एक नई भारतीय भाषा सीखने के लिए प्रेरित करें, तथा यह ध्यान रखें कि समस्त भाषाओं का सम्मान को समान सम्मान दृष्टि से देखें। यह हमारा व्यक्तिगत ही नहीं बल्कि हमारा संवैधानिक तथा नैतिक कर्तव्य भी है। भारतीय भाषा संस्थान यह कोशिश करेगी कि हम एक नई भाषा सीखने के लिए लोगों को लर्न वन मोर लैंग्वेज की शुरुआत करेंगे और संभवतः अगले 2-3 वर्षों में एक नई भारतीय भाषा सीखें अभियान को आगे की ओर बढ़ाएंगे। इस उद्देश्य की साधना से हमारा भारतीय भाषा संस्थान भविष्य में अपने योगदान की दिशा में अग्रसर रहेगा, और मुझे आशा ही नहीं बल्कि पूर्ण विश्वास है कि राष्ट्र निर्माण के इस महती कार्य में आप सभी वरिष्ठ विद्वानों का मार्गदर्शन, सहयोगियों का सहयोग तथा युवा कर्मियों का समर्थन मिलता रहेगा। हम इसी आशा के साथ एक बार फिर आप सभी को विश्व मातृभाषा दिवस की ढेर ढेर शुभकामनाएं देते हैं। जय देश, जय मातृभाषा। नमस्कार।
Thank you, Professor Shailendra Mohan, Director CIIL, for your presidential address. Now we have come almost to the end of the program, but before we conclude, it would seem ungrateful on the part of CIIL if we don't express our appreciation and convey our gratitude to all those who are present today. Therefore, I would like to request Mr. Alindra Brahma, Lecturer cum Junior Research Officer of the Institute, who is also Officer in charge of Northeastern Region, Northeastern Regional Language Center, Guwahati, to convey a vote of thanks.
ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರು ಒಂದೊಂದು ಹೊಸ ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಕಲಿಯುವ ಮೂಲಕ ಭಾರತದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಸೋಣ, ಉಳಿಸೋಣ ಎಂದು ನಮಗೆ ಹೇಳಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರಾದ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾದಂತಹ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶೈಲೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋಹನ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಂತಿಮ ಘಟ್ಟವನ್ನು ತಲುಪಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸುವ ಮೊದಲು ಇಂದು ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗೆ ಉಪಸ್ಥಿತರಿರುವ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ವಂದನಾರ್ಪಣೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುವ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೃತಜ್ಞತೆಯನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸಲು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕರು ಮತ್ತು ಕಿರಿಯ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಈಶಾನ್ಯ ಪ್ರಾದೇಶಿಕ ಭಾಷಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಗುವಾಹಟಿ ಪ್ರಭಾರ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾದ ಶ್ರೀ ಅಲೀಂದ್ರ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮರ್ ಅವರನ್ನ ನಾನು ವಿನಂತಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಸರ್,
Kulumbai, Namaskara. Before I take this privileged opportunity to propose the further thanks to the respected dignitaries and the respected audience, I would like to wish all Gajan Muluknang Bimarau San, Hubo Antarashtriya Matribhasha Divok, Antarashtriya Matribhasha Divas ki Shubhkamnaएं, Happy International Mother Language Day. I'm so proud to tell that my mother tongue is Boro. I also speak Assamese as my second mother tongue, if the term is acceptable, second mother tongue. I would like to take this advantage to congratulate and convey my respect to all the mother tongues and mother tongue speakers. We are so happy and blessed that the founder director of the institute, Padma Shri Professor D.B. Patnaik sir, is with us in this auspicious day. We appreciate and honor his very presence in this platform, and we are so privileged to thank him. We also pray for his good health and long life. We are so happy again that another former director of CIIL, Professor Rajesh Chasdeva, has been so kind to join us today to encourage us and to celebrate the International Mother Language Day. We are so blessed that Sri T.S. Nagavarana, the Honorable Chairperson of Kannada Development Authority, Government of Karnataka, accepted our invitation so happily, and sir has joined us today as one of the respected guests of honor and emphasized on the importance of use of mother tongues in developing education, the concerned communities, and the nation as a whole. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your valuable time with us. We are also so happy and blessed that to have and listen to Professor Sankar Vath, former senior fellow of the institute. He has discussed about the importance of a mother tongue as a medium of instruction. Thank you, sir, for your enlightening talk on mother tongues. We are again so happy and blessed that another former director of our institute, Professor Uday Narayan Singh, has joined us today as the chief guest and emphasized on the sweetness of a home language. He has delivered his lecture in his mother tongue, Bengali and Maithili, and then in English and Hindi. It was really so sweet and so enlightening to listen to Professor Singh's so insightful and beautiful talk on mother tongues. Thank you so much, sir. We also thank Srimati Suman Dixit ji, the Honorable Deputy Secretary, Language Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Government of India, for being so kind to accept our invitation to join us in celebrating the International Mother Language Day. Unfortunately, Madam could not join us in this opening session for an unavailable reason. Thank you, Madam, for accepting our invitation. We are so encouraged and blessed that the present Honorable Director of the Institute, Professor Shailendra Mahan, has been standing by the organizing committee and has been encouraging and leading us towards a would-be success. In the long run, we thank the wonderful audience for joining us today in celebrating the day. Gasiba Manganang Alasi, Manganang Kanasongirifur, खौरांगिरिफोर आरो दिनैनि बे मुलुगनां बिमाराव सान फालिनायखौ सामलायनाय आरो सालायनाय गासै बानजायगिरिफोरनो जोंनि अननाय सिबिनाय साबायखर बावबाय गोजोन्थों লগতে মোৰ সন্মানীয় সহকৰ্মীসকল প্ৰফেসৰ উমাৰাণী প্ৰফেসৰ ফাৰ্নান্ডেজ প্ৰফেসৰ শিৱৰামা কৃষ্ণ ডক্টৰ নাৰায়ণ ডক্টৰ পংকজ শ্ৰী সুজয় সৰকাৰ ডক্টৰ তাৰিক ডক্টৰ প্ৰেম কুমাৰ আৰু মই মোৰ প্ৰতিষ্ঠানৰ সকলো সন্মানীয় সহকৰ্মীসকলক ধন্যবাদ জনাইছো Again, on behalf of the institute, the honorable director of the institute, I also thank the organizers of the wonderful program. Thank you so much. Happy Mother Language Day. Jabad Gazantam. Bahut bahut dhanyawad. Kulumbai.
I will take this opportunity to thank Professor Uma for organizing this, and the Sujay Sarkar, of course, and Professor D.P. Patnaik and Professor Rajesh sir for their gracious presence on this, and others for their gracious presence. Namaskar.
ವಂದನಾರ್ಪಣೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಅಲಿಂದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮರವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಭಾರತೀಯ ಭಾಷಾ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ದಿನಾಚರಣೆ ಆರಂಭಿಕ ಗೋಷ್ಠಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ತಾಳ್ಮೆಯಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮೊಂದಿಗಿದ್ದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. 3 ದಿನಗಳ ಕಾಲ ನಡೆಯುವ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ನೀವು ಆನಂದಿಸುತ್ತೀರಿ ಎಂದು ನಾನು ಭಾವಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಉಪಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಮತ್ತು ಭಾಗವಹಿಸುವಿಕೆ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿಯೂ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಯಶಸ್ಸನ್ನ ತಂದುಕೊಡುತ್ತದೆ. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಲಾದಷ್ಟು ಕೊಡುಗೆ ನೀಡಲು ಮತ್ತು ಶ್ರಮಿಸಲು ಒಬ್ಬರನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಪ್ರೋತ್ಸಾಹಿಸೋಣ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಶುಭ ದಿನ. ಜೈ ಹಿಂದ್.
Thank you, Alindra sir, for your appreciation, and thank you, Nod. Since today is a Mother Tongue Day, let me also take this opportunity to speak a few words in my mother tongue. So it goes like this. Muntina sopi ulenaute vandoili si na nupau hilo le nampau ni poki manachunga na bon savin limna let by kahin bolo na hin. Mahatma Gandhi in anasay na chun miting le ka theme sa pau theme hon na pawu naman sa loba koi zom jing leo ni khat na pau na ham hi kilha ting le an ngai cha tun banga na hin ngai cha di hi ti it's how he get the punjin ipi izat pau hi izat cha pi lovin kitang api within aman thalo na digin pan la khom jing lete. So that is in my mother tongue, a short translation. As we celebrate International Mother Language Day, let us remind ourselves Mahatma Gandhi's words. If the English educated neglect, as they have done and even now continue, as some do, to be ignorant of their mother tongue, linguist starvation will abide. So let us continue to be proud of our mother language and continue to strive in preserving and promoting our mother languages. So now we have come to the end of this program, and I once again thank each and every one of you for being with us in the opening session of the International Mother Language Day celebration at CIIL. I hope that everyone have enjoyed the program, and your presence and participation will continue to make this program a successful one, because we still have 2 more days ahead of this celebration. So I once again thank each and everyone. Thank you, and have a wonderful day ahead. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Essay participants.
Please note that essay participants must join at 1:45.